Go ahead and call to order the regular city council meeting for City of Williamston on Monday, February 24th, 2025, 6 p.m. We could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Barb, will you call the roll, please?
Ludwig.
Yes.
Haynes.
Here.
Jenkins.
Here.
Van Allsburg.
Present.
Rhines.
Here.
Gilroy.
Here.
Hanson.
Here.
All right.
I want to say it in honor of the guy that used to say that.
All right, thank you so much, Barb. I'm looking for approval of the agenda for this evening unless there are changes that need to be noted.
Move to approve.
Thank you so much. Do I have support?
Support.
Thank you both. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion passes. Time for audience participation, which I do not see anybody in our gallery, so we will just move right along. We've got our council meeting minutes of February 10th, 2025. I'm looking for approval unless there are changes to be noted.
Move that we approve the February 10th meeting minutes as presented.
Thank you so much. Do I have support?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, Terry, you had an opportunity to review accounts payable for this evening.
I did. Had a couple of questions. John answered them promptly. And just a quick kind of an overview. I'm a numbers guy, so when I look at kind of this thing, I say, gosh, where do we spend our money? It's almost $800,000. Well, percentage-wise, we sent money on to other government units, right? It's called an ad valorem tax. So Ingham County, the airport, Lansing Community College, stuff like that. We sent out 65% of what we took in, we sent out to other government units, for what it's worth. And 25% of what we took in, we made in one payment for the North Putnam pavement and stuff, paving stuff. So 65 and 25 is 90. So 90% of that number, this $800,000 number, 90% of that was just those two things. Just as a kind of a big picture thing there.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
We spent about $9K on road salt,
Perfect.
which I thought was interesting.
Tis the
And
season.
every month we spend about $9K on streetlights. So, in answer to your question, where did all that money go?
All right, thank you. Thanks so much, Terry. I appreciate that. So, your motion now?
I need to make a motion?
Yeah, you do.
Okay, I make a motion to approve checks 78142 to 78173, EFT 1371, and ACH 1344 to 1379 for a grand total of $791,148.37.
Thank you so much, Terry. I do appreciate that, and I know our viewing audience, plus our council members, appreciate that as well, that breakdown. Do I have support for the motion?
Second.
Thank you. If there's no further discussion, or if anyone has any questions, Barb, will you call the roll for accounts payable, please?
Van Allsburg.
Yes.
Rhines.
Yes.
Gilroy.
Yes.
Ludwig.
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
Haynes.
Yes.
Jenkins.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Moving on to our action items, we have two for this evening. The first is our wastewater plant administration building boiler. We do have a memo in our packet from our city manager, John Hannafin, so I will turn that over to him right now.
Thank you and good evening. So the boiler that's been in service there for about 35 years, as you know, that plant has some elements that are 70, 80 years old. The boiler finally failed. We did replace the treatment building boiler last year. We tried as best we could to repair it, just couldn't do that. So we've been running space heaters in the building to heat it, which obviously is not the best. But this is the first council meeting that we could gather all our quotes and bring it to all of you. So we did reach out to, excuse me, 7 different mechanical contractors locally and regionally. Goyette Mechanical was the low responded at $58,140. All of those companies that provided quotes are good. Johnny Green we've worked with in the past. We've done some work with Myers Plumbing before too. But there's really no good news when you're spending 60 grand to fix something. But we do have what's called the RR&I fund, which is the Replace and Repair Infrastructure Fund, which is part of our bond covenants with USDA. So we set aside money every year, we're required to do that, and have a certain amount set aside, and this repair would be covered with those funds that are held in reserve. So, again, it's no fun, but happy to answer any questions you may have. Goyette was very, very detailed in their proposal, and they have a good familiarity with the plant as well.
John, has were we waiting to have this approved before we schedule for the replacement, or have they already replaced?
No, we were waiting.
Okay.
It's a large
All right.
item, and
Sure.
again, it's not ideal to run space heaters,
Right,
but
right.
you know, if it was $5,800, we would have went ahead and just got it repaired. And
Sure. Well, it's a good thing it was, really warm today outside.
Warmer, yeah.
So, yeah. But, all right, any questions for John regarding this? This is fabulous, 7 different quotes, appreciate that. Looks like we've got 2 hands down here. I'll call on John first, he had his hand up, and then I'll go to Terry.
Yeah, I saw one of the first meetings I attended that we had contracted with Gailey Plumbing. Were they solicited?
Yes, go ahead.
They were not, I mean, this is really a project that's way, way beyond what
Okay.
they're able to do. We do use them for our building repairs here, and then also the restrooms.
Okay.
All right, great question, thank you so much.
Big
Terry?
picture wise, this RRI fund, how much money is in there and how much is gonna be depleted, percentage?
So it's typically around $250,000,
Oh, okay.
so.
Is it part of the water sewer fund?
Yes, go right ahead.
It is part of the sewer fund,
Okay.
yeah, it's, when we go over financials during budget, I'll point that out.
All right, great. All good questions. If there are no other questions,
I have
yes,
one
Scott,
more.
go ahead.
About the refusals to quote, is there a lesson to be learned from that?
This is an interesting bid time.
Sure.
It doesn't surprise me, and part of it, companies may have already been scheduled because we need this repaired now.
Right.
They may not have the resources to
Right.
dedicate. They may have looked at it and said, no, this is just too big for us.
Okay, all right.
How soon,
Yes, go
how soon
ahead,
do you think
Terry.
it could get done?
They'll start on the work as soon as we get the signed quote to them. So probably, a week or 10 days,
Yeah.
give or take.
Okay. All good questions. I'm looking for the recommended motion to move forward.
I'll make a motion to select Goyette Mechanical to replace the wastewater treatment plant administration building boiler for the quote of $58,140.
All right, thank you both so much. Should we do a not to exceed? Do we know this is firm? What if they get in there and something happens and it's more than the 58,140? My concern would be, or would it be under your responsibility that you could approve the extra?
Yeah, at that point, we would have, I mean, we're committed to the repair.
Right.
And typically quotes, because this isn't time and material, it's very specific that we
Okay.
should be really close to that number.
Okay,
There are contingencies that could happen, I mean, we don't think there's asbestos there,
Okay.
but if there are, then we'll have to deal with that as part of the project.
okay, all right. All right, thank you. Again, all good discussion. Barb, will you call the roll, please?
Rhines,
Yes.
Gilroy,
Yes.
Ludwig,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Haynes,
Yes.
Yes.
Jenkins, Van Allsburg.
Yes.
All right, great. Our second and last action item for this evening is our city manager contract adjustment. We do have a memo in here from our city manager. I'm going to turn that back over to John Hanson.
Wow, I don't often get to set the price of government, but, no, just kidding. So we did meet in my review. Yeah, we did meet in my review last time.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that I guess I would share is that the italics, that there was a proposal for a 4% wage increase and an added one-time lump sum payment of $2,000. So,
Okay.
I mean, all of you should discuss and come up with something that you think is fair and make a motion or not.
All right. So, city manager is correct. We did have this discussion at our previous city council meeting, and I would open it up does anyone have any comments, questions, or food for thought at this time? Yes?
I think 4% is realistic, but I want to know where the starting point is. I looked at the cash flow reports from last year, and then the one that was approved for the upcoming year. Where are you? I thought you had said 106 last time, aren't you at 111?
No, so I can clarify that. I think what you were reading is there's the budgeted amount, because I know that I had heard some of your discussion that you thought the clerk was making 180 grand or something like that. That's the total salary for that department. And so the total budgeted number for this fiscal year for my salary, the budgeted number, not approved number, is 111. I currently, the base rate for me is 102,500, and then I get additional $500 a month for DDA and planning and zoning. So the total
Yeah.
is 100,008, 500.
Okay.
108, 500.
Great,
That's where I'm at currently.
thank you for answering that question. Terry?
Yeah, another proposal is for 4%, and Steve has made a case for the idea that we do 4% instead of 5%, because 5% through 3 years will accumulate because of the magic of compound interest will become actually a 16% raise instead of a 15% raise. I don't want to skim, so I'd rather go with straight 5%, maybe a lump sum payment in addition to that, but I don't see the advantage. I understand your concern, but I don't agree with it. I think we should just go with the 5%, understanding that after 3 years, it becomes more than 15, it becomes 16.
Okay, all right,
Okay?
good discussion. Steve, do you want to follow up to that at all, or anything? I mean, any comments?
Well,
Question?
we looked at this last year, I shared some information this year from the Michigan Municipal League.
Yep.
Showing that John, our city manager, is on the, I'd call him about the top third
Mhm.
of total wages, and I think that what I've seen from John, that he is definitely worth
Mhm.
looking at increasing him more than the 5% because of where his current salary is at.
Correct.
I agree that 5% is what we gave everybody else, so that's where that figure is there, but as was expressed by Terry, my preference is a lower amount and then maybe more in a bonus.
Lump sum bonus. Mhm. Okay. All right. I'm just gonna go around, I'll come back to you, let's, Dan, go ahead.
Having looked at some of the information that was provided from the comparable city managers, what Steve said, John, is in that top third, but it's the lower end
Yes.
of the top third, like, I think most of the top third was closer to that 120 mark,
Mhm.
and then you had way outliers that were at the bottom of our comparables that were at 70,000.
Right.
With the work we've seen from John over the last few years and this last leading us through the construction projects, all that type of thing, I think a good raise is manageable. I think I don't think we have to move him to the top end of that top third, but getting closer to the middle of that top third,
Mhm.
which I think if we did, I would be in favor of either a 6% raise or a 5% raise with the cash contingency or the cash bonus, or that's where I'm at.
Okay, all right, I'm just going right down the road. Scott?
Yeah, I'm in agreement with that, and he's really good.
Yeah, he is.
I mean,
He is.
so I watched him during the chainsaw event, okay?
Mhm.
This guy's, he's got it going on. First of all, we're sitting in these meetings, and he's got like 20 things that he's responsible for. And like everyone's looking at him, and he's like, I got that covered, I got that covered. And he came and he got it all covered. He really is good.
Yep.
So I'm totally on board with a 6% or 5%.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Tim?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, because when by the time you calculate it all, and you take that weekly,
Yep,
and then the sacrifice that's made for, he does get paid for the time away from home, the time away
Sure.
from family,
yep,
and the travel, I think that's a really good, the 5 or 6%
Yep.
is good.
yep. And I'll chime in, just because I'm the last here to make a comment. You know, historically, we've had a lot of different city managers, but as I said in our discussion last time we all met, I couldn't be more pleased and more happy with the professionalism, the dedication to Williamston, his organizational skills, the the knowledge that he brings from the other municipalities where he's worked at has benefited us because how deep his bench is. And so I appreciate that. I would be on board with the 5 or 6%, and I wanna thank, Steve for really, providing the information and helping us to look at this at a really bigger picture. And I appreciate that because, I really appreciate the fact that John sits right there and that I have the ability to listen to some cowboy tunes right now, because I feel like that was apropos as we're talking about this.
I'll be the good.
The good, the bad, the ugly, you bet, you bet.
It's like you expect him to stand up and start twirling the rope.
That was not planned. But, we couldn't do what we do here without a very, very strong city manager, running our daily operations, leading our staff, and our multiple departments that, report up to him. So, again, I'm on board, with the consensus. John, I know you had something to add.
Help me to understand what we're voting for. Is this 1 year, or is this like a 3-year, 4 or 5% each year?
I'll go ahead and go back over to city manager on what that structure would be.
What we've done since I've been here, it's for 1 year.
It's a 1 year,
Correct.
so this is just about for 1 year.
The contract is through 2028, but the economics are reviewed every year.
Yes, and so this would lay that framework for us that we've done this year. What does it look like next year? We can review that and have a better understanding of what that's gonna look like when we come to this time of year next year. But thank you for clarifying that this is 1 year, and yes, Tim.
Yes, and as we discussed, and I did confer with Matt Nordfjord on this, you have discretion to structure this any way you want within your discretion. The only thing, of course, is there can't be any retroactive
Correct.
pay
Moving forward.
based on the Constitution. And that certainly a percentage coupled with a one-time lump sum payment is appropriate. We don't call it a bonus.
Right,
Okay,
right.
so I
Excellent.
was pleased to see this wording.
All right, Terry.
I want to go on record as being opposed to the private jet. Okay? You're great, but that's just a bridge too far. Okay, that's, all right.
And the secret one-way somewhere here in Williamston? All right,
I'm okay with the jet, it's the pilot that's expensive.
right, exactly. Yes, John, one more
Yeah, I
time.
just, again, I need it clear in my mind, whether it's 4%, 5 or 6. $2,000 is 1.8%, so you should factor that in
Mm-hmm.
to a given percentage.
Sure. And this was just a proposal, but I believe from what I have heard across the table and also from our city manager, city attorney, correct me if I'm wrong, when we make the recommended motion, we could, whoever makes that motion could offer up 5%, 6%, and the lump sum payment. So I guess the discussion needs to be, or if somebody wants to make a recommended motion with a percentage, and then we have further discussion, I am happy to entertain that.
Just a question with the monthly additional stipend for the 2 positions that he's filling. So if we pass, whatever we pass, how do we deal with the $500?
That comes out of those direct budgets, so his $500 stipend comes directly from DDA. There wouldn't be any increase because, let's say all of a sudden John comes to us and says, you know what, I've got way too much on my plate, we're gonna need to hire a director of the DDA and this is how much we're gonna pay him, or planning, we're gonna hand more responsibility over to McKenna. So I'm not going to be the planning de facto with that stipend. So that, correct me if I'm wrong, Tim, that does not touch his salary amount or that increase. They're not joint combined because those are separate budgets.
So what we're voting on then would be
Base
a
salary.
percentage on his base salary.
Correct, base salary and then that, whatever we determine that lump sum payment, so.
So I'm thinking 5% plus 3,000.
Is that your recommended motion?
Yeah,
Are you
No,
gonna
I don't
make
wanna
that
it
official?
Is there a way to sort of back those numbers around without making it official?
5% gives them just a little bit over extra $100 a month if I calculate, did I calculate that right? 52 weeks out of the year, and then you go 5%, right? And so, you know, in the scope of things, I mean, think about it, if you're on your job and, you know, you're gonna get this raise and somebody walks up and says, I only do 50 cents an hour, you say, just keep it, because, you know, that
Right.
just makes you feel good, but not me, so.
Right.
I think 5% is pretty good, if we give them a nice bonus on top of that.
Okay.
I mean, it's gas bill alone, I mean.
Or the lump sum.
I mean, just give them a gas card.
Right.
It'll take care of the whole thing too.
All right, so, what I'm hearing then is a possible 5%, and then a lump sum amount. If somebody would like to make that first motion, we can discuss. I can ask for a second or a support, see what happens, if we have to come back and make another motion. But if somebody is wanting to put one out, Dan?
I'd like to make a motion to amend the city manager's employment agreement with the following terms: to increase his base salary by 5% with a lump sum payment of $3,000.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and I have support. Does anyone have any discussion or questions or comments regarding what has been proposed? Yes, Steve, I'm sorry, Steve, and then I'll come to John.
As you all have heard in my comment with John, I'm very supportive of him and what he does. I do think that 3,000 is a little excessive. I would prefer the 5% and 2,000, but just not against whether he's worth it or not, but just from
Okay.
monitoring what we spend.
Okay, all right, no, duly noted. John, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm similar to Steve, I'm just not comfortable giving you an 8% raise.
Well, technically is that an 8%?
Well, 3,000 on 108,000.
Okay.
106.
That's still 5 to 2, we got it.
Okay, all right. I've heard the discussion, and so I will call for a roll, to see if what has been proposed and supported passes. If not, then we will look for another motion. Barb, will you call the roll, please?
Gilroy,
Yes.
Ludwig,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Haynes,
No.
Jenkins,
No.
Van Allsburg,
Yes.
Rhines.
Yes.
All right, this is a good thing that it's we do this every year. This is a great exercise. I appreciate it. I know that we are very fiscally conservative here. I do think that what our city manager does for us is absolutely worth it, and I appreciate everyone's participation and discussion on it.
And I appreciate the frugality. That's not a bad thing.
Right, absolutely.
Parsimonious
You look
with
that
public
word up.
funds, that's a good word.
All right, well, that concludes our action items for this evening. We'll move along to our discussion items. Our discussion items list has changed up just slightly. We have our 2025-2026 preliminary construction projects. I'm going to turn this over to our city manager, John Hannafin, so he can go through those with us.
Thank you. Reported on this a couple meetings ago that we had gone through estimate with Spicer on these various projects. We're going to discuss these more in depth later this week at our visioning session in projects, all projects moving forward for the next 5 years really. But I did want to share the preliminary estimates for High Street, starting with that. The limited construction would be from North Putnam to Cedar. There is some storm sewer work that's proposed. That's really the only quote-unquote utilities. But that street's in really, really rough shape. It's 4 inches of asphalt on base, so the full mill depth would be 4 inches. There's a contingency for replacing some of the base in certain spots. So, you know, as far as affordability, we view this as it's a 2025 heading into 2026 project. So if council is in agreement, we would bid the project out, and then we would start the project in June. And so it would really straddle 2 budget years. This is a major street, so there's more funds available for major street construction. And it is, we do PASER rating for streets, the street from that section rates out as a 1, which is the worst that it can be, so. So
John,
that,
can
yeah.
you tell me again, is this the full length of High Street?
This is High Street from North Putnam just to Cedar.
Oh, okay, so
Yeah.
just that, all right.
Yep.
Is the underlayment, is it pretty solid? Is there any way to know?
A portion of it is likely pretty good, because it tends to crack uniformly, which is usually a good sign. But we do have some allowances for some undercutting and some base if necessary.
Okay, got it. That's what's meant by undercutting then?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, and it's exactly that. If there's an area that is worn through and isn't as good, it's just cut out, and then it's filled back with different, usually an aggregate mix or egg rock or limestone.
John, if the section between Putnam and Cedar is a PASER rating of 1, what is the PASER rating from Cedar down to the end?
It's a mixture of from 3 to 4 to 5.
Okay, all right, so it's definitely in better shape, okay, all right.
The other project that we're want to look at is, I know Mullet Street is you know, it's probably been a dirt road forever, and what we're proposing is to use a treatment called a double chip seal. And what that is, it's a layer of tar with a layer of asphalt chips, and then another layer of tar and another layer of chips. It is a pretty common treatment in county roads. Again, Mullet's not a big street. You know, the total preliminary cost for that would be about $22,000. I think I think this is a good starting point, because right now it's mainly a potholed, rutted mess. And much like Railroad, which we'll talk about in a second, it's pretty, for a small stretch of street, it's labor intensive because we have to grade it periodically, and there's also some drainage issues that come up from time to time because it is a dirt road. And the dirt tends to get washed towards the catch basin that's towards Grand River. So I think this would be a great starting point. It also would give everyone a good look at what double chip seal would look like. Sometimes folks, I mean, there's a lot of different kinds of asphalt treatments, but this is the best one if you're just getting to a starting point. It's usually a 5 to 7 year solution. But for this small street to be completely reconstructed with curb and gutter and sidewalks, it's probably $150,000 to $200,000 project, because none of that's there. The other complex thing is there isn't a lot of right-of-way on that street, and I know that was one of the issues previously, that sidewalks weren't put, and so the decision was made not to pave it at all, which it's easy to, like, Monday morning quarterback, I wouldn't have agreed with that. It should have been paved at the time, but here we are, so. Questions about that one?
Terry, go ahead.
Yeah, the chip and seal thing, is that what Core One is?
Yes,
Okay, so that's a chunk of road with quite a bit of traffic on it, and it's in pretty good shape.
correct.
Okay.
So what is it, I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Okay, I was asking.
Yeah, one thing, I mean, and that's why that we started discussions now. I mean, High Street's a little easier to conceptualize because it's a traditional street replacement. So we'll have some examples to show, probably not Thursday, because I don't want streets to dominate the entire discussion, but as we move closer to the decision point for council to bid the project out, and first we've got to go through the budget process, but we'll have some examples, and then we'll even have a couple of streets that you can go visit to see it. That's usually the best way to get an idea. We do not have any double chip seal in town.
Right. I was asking Dan, just because he's out in the township all the time, what it is that they do to Zimmer Road, because in my opinion, that's one of the best roads to drive on. There's no potholes, no cracks, nothing, and so that's why I was asking him about the chip seal that they do out there.
So Zimmer is chip sealing?
Frequently, what they do anymore is when they lay new asphalt, they come through a couple of years later, and then they do a chip seal on top.
Okay.
And that's what we ran into with the detour for Putnam last year. When the detour just opened, they were chip sealing Zimmer.
Yep, okay. All right. Okay, and because Mullet is so short, if I heard you correct, John, if we do the chip seal down there, that could be a 5 to 7 year lifetime?
Yes.
Okay, all right. And with some maintenance, obviously.
Absolutely, yep, there has to be some annual maintenance. And the other thing it would do, Railroad took Street all the way to Mill around the corner. To do that in traditional street construction or reconstruction, you're looking at a $2.5 to $3 million project because, it's currently a dirt road and it uses, slope and gravity to move water off it. There are storm catch basins there, so that's the good news, but again, if everyone was okay with the way the chip seal came out on Mullet, we would propose doing the same on Railroad, on Mill, and that would be in the next budget year, so roughly a year from this summer. And that's, again, within the sphere of affordability. The other thing about that, I did talk to the Tifa board about this the other evening, that a good portion of Railroad, at least it appears to me, is in the Tifa. It's in the Tifa map. And Tifa would be able to cover roughly half of the project cost for that. So there'd be an advantage of that. And this is a local road, so there aren't as many funds available, but what we would do is we would just, every year we make an annual, we make an allocation from the general fund to major and local. We would just adjust our allocation to beef up the local funds to roughly half the project cost, and away we go. So. But it would be a way to, I'll be totally transparent, this first time that I worked in a city that there's still dirt roads. And there's other communities that are like that. Right before I went to work for the Village of Dexter in 2004, they had some dirt roads, and they initially did a double chip seal to kind of build the base, and then ultimately they came back about 15 years later and did a traditional curb and gutter in asphalt. So.
I think all three of these are the right direction that we need to go. And I also would, say too that, we can continue to look for those, opportunities for grant dollars like, we were so fortunate to receive when Slatkin put the call out for municipalities. So you never know what could come up in the future that we could, submit to try to, add railroad to a project similar to, what we've done with water sewer. You said it has catch basins.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have sewer that goes down?
There's
no sewer on
there's
railroad?
no infrastructure that we would have to do anything with.
Okay, all right, great. All right, yes, Terry.
In preparation for being in the city council, I read a book about small towns and what makes them go bankrupt. And the conclusion from the small town, from the book, in one sentence is that roads, if you don't stay on top, if you don't stay on top of roads, it becomes such a huge thing that you have to float a big bond thing to get the roads fixed, and then you can't make the money, you can't pay the bond, and then you go belly up, okay? So, now, my past experience, my theory, my current working theory is that one of the main things we need to avoid the city going bankrupt is to make sure that we stay on top of the road thing and not let it get on top of us.
Right.
And this is a good move in that direction. For what it's worth.
All right, any other comments? Yes, John?
A couple things, and I keep hearing different things again. Is it 2 mil or including mil?
I'm not sure what your question is.
Oh, two layers of mill.
No, Mill Street. It's
Mill Street.
railroad and mill.
And mil.
It turns
Not
the
2
corner.
mil.
Yeah, mill, so it would be railroad all the way to Mill, and then it turns the corner a little bit, because Mill Street is,
Oh, it doesn't do
Well,
mill.
mil goes on what, middle? Is that where mil?
No, mill is right over here, so middle turns into mill, railroad turns into mill.
correct.
So, would we be doing the length of Mill Street
Yes.
with chip and seal up to
Yes.
where it connects with
Correct.
Middle Street?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. Then a couple comments and directed to our attorney. I think Tifa, way back in the dark ages, and I was on Tifa EDC, thought about that idea of funding railroad. I don't think it'll work, or at least I'm pretty sure that was the conclusion of the old Tifa board way back in the 90s. So
You mean
maybe
they
something-
didn't wanna do it, or they couldn't?
They couldn't do it. So, just,
Don't they have,
Yeah, Mr.
Gormley?
Gormley's the representation
Sure.
of the Tifa board. Yeah.
Yes.
and then this seems to be a pitchfork thing, pitchfork and flaming torches with the people that are living there. You seemingly have I don't understand why we have dirt roads. So I'm in favor of I'm in favor of paving, but are the property owners, especially on Mill, I can think of two sets of property owners that are definitely afraid of higher taxes, et cetera, et cetera. Are they going to be brought into the planning? Are they gonna be made aware of our discussions? That type of thing.
So they don't want it to be paid.
They don't want it to be paid, which, again, stuns me.
Sure. I think what we have to look at, and there wouldn't be any special assessments, I don't believe anybody's taxes would go up if we were to double chip seal and improve the quality of the surface. I've been over on Mill Street, I know people that live on Mill Street. I think that if you have the conversations with them, you let them know that this is for the good of all, you may see that there's a changed attitude. And I think that what John has done very, very well is, more so when we've had these big projects, we do town hall meetings. We make sure that we educate our residents and anyone that it directly affects, so that everybody's on the same page, that there's nothing hidden with what is being proposed or what is going to be executed. And so I would say that because we're talking about this now, this gives us plenty of time to bring those residents in, have those conversations, even one-on-one conversations with them, find out what their apprehension was, and if there is a solution that can benefit all. Dan?
I think some of this is, well, one thing, we had some residents from Mill in here about a month ago that were happy with the thought of
Yes.
of seeing paving, and I think part of it goes back to many years ago, I think it would have been a special assessment, which is not what we're talking about. And we're gonna, before, we have to approve Mullet, which we haven't done yet. Look at Mullet, see what everyone thinks of that,
Yep.
but before we get to Railroad and Mill. But yes, obviously we need to hear what the residents' thoughts are, but I think we also have some road to get down before we.
For sure. It's a long process. It's a long process.
The one
Yes,
guy,
Scott.
the one guy came to the workshop,
Yep.
and the guy was a.
Palazzo.
Yeah,
Yep.
he came and was very much in favor of paving.
Yes.
Yep.
So there's a mixture of opinions, but, you know, that makes it up to us.
Yeah,
Right.
I don't get it.
Right.
So, but
Okay.
I did an analysis of that group,
Yes.
10 people, 0 pitchforks.
Okay, great,
so-
thanks. All right, awesome.
Trust the math.
And I think that's the one thing that, we can all be very, proud of, knowing that when we come up with something, we're very transparent about it. Making sure that everybody, you know, we've gone down the road with MDOT and traffic guides and all sorts of other things. So as long as we continue to make sure that everybody is a part of a conversation, I think we would probably be surprised with positive reaction for that over there. Construction project update.
I don't have anything to add other than what we just talked about.
Okay, master plan update.
So the planning commission is not meeting next week, we just had multiple conflicts with board members that were traveling, so we canceled the meeting. We'll meet again in April to discuss the master plan, starting to hone in on the goals and objectives based on the feedback that we got from the public engagement, both the, excuse me, the survey we did, and then also the in-person exercise we had with boards and committees.
All right, and then finally, I will talk slowly. The main for safety improvements.
Unfortunately, nothing to add at this time.
Okay, all right, great. That concludes our discussion items for this evening. We do not have any correspondence received, so I will just move right down the list to the department head reports and jump right back over to our city manager. I know we're going to be meeting on Thursday. We're gonna have a lot of time to talk about things on Thursday, but
Yep, you're gonna get a full diet of my high nasally voice, so I'm gonna try not to talk much at this section. I do wanna thank you for the amendments to my contract earlier, thank you for that. I do wanna point out to Mr. Hanson that 100% of statistics are only right 70% of the time, so.
Is it each
I
one?
know he loves statistics.
Right,
Um,
exactly.
We're gonna have we have a busy, this is our busiest time as
Mhm.
far as meetings and work sessions. It's in my report, there's a number of, we'll be setting the public hearing for budget, utility rates, if there's any change in those rates. I don't anticipate changes to any of those, but we still go through the public hearing process. We'll be setting our budget work sessions, so there's a lot going on. We'll start seeing Jubilee, some of their items that are part of putting their event on. So a lot of really cool things happening. One thing I did want to point out too is the agreement with the farmers market. That's will be on the agenda because it was a 5-year deal, and that deal the 5 years is expiring this year.
Okay.
And so that's it, and then I'll save the rest for the work session. Do want to remind folks it is this Thursday at 6 o'clock at the middle school in the multi-purpose room. Is that correct? Multi-purpose room?
All right, excellent. Chief is not here this evening, but I would be remiss if I did not wish our chief happy birthday. Today is his birthday, so hopefully he is out celebrating. And I'm sure he will catch up with us and give us his report when we gather again for our next city council meeting. Subcommittee reports, anyone want to share? Yes, Scott?
Well, yeah, I finally made it back to a cemetery meeting. It had been 1 year since the last meeting, and I had missed that one, so, yeah, it was, cemetery business as usual, some discussion about natural burial site and what's permissible in terms of, containers, other exciting stuff that everyone wants to hear about, because everyone's talked about, burying people, so.
Right, yeah,
So,
well,
it's a very exciting group, so, yeah, anyway, so I was there and it was typical as usual.
All right. excellent.
Can people still bury in their backyards or loved ones in their backyards anywhere?
I have no problem with that personally. but I
If
don't
you
know
do,
if
just don't tell anybody. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Anybody else attend a meeting that they'd like to share information? I'll start with Steve and then I'll go to Terry.
As John mentioned, we had a TIFA meeting.
Yes.
And as the last page of our document shows the projects that are being discussed. John, there was some conversation about the road and whether or not TIFA could do it. And Mr. Porciano, the chair, also referenced that. But it sounded like, according to him, that it had something to do with selling lots or selling portions of a lot as to what was, they couldn't or didn't want to. So, but we were going to reach out to Mr. Gormley, the attorney, to see if there be any prohibition of that. And the other thing, we had just a brief update on the ice house. It's still moving forward and slowly, it sounds like. But one of the conversations we had that one of the board members mentioned is wanting not to let it go too far without putting some type of timeline as to when something has to happen.
Yes. All right, great, thanks. Terry?
Decent meeting. I was able to do it without backup, which is, but no one was there. Pretty standard, kind of normal business as usual. And as in small town government, it's all about the money, right?
Sure.
And NISA does tend to be a little spendthrift-y, but they discuss a lot before they actually commit the money. So that's a good thing.
Excellent, great. Anyone else? Yes, Dan?
We had a ZBA meeting last week. It was in regards to the proposed tailgaters out by 96. They wanted a very large reduction in the amount of landscaping required between the tailgaters and the road. There was a lot of discussion. What they ended up with was a very small reduction in the amount of landscaping needed.
All right, excellent. Good to hold them to our standards. All right, we had a DDA meeting. Things are moving along in our downtown with our events. We have that, did we ever settle on what the new event is called in May?
Brand new.
Brand new, it's called Brand New. So it's a spring event, so everything's brand new in spring. We will have information out regarding that. We are going to have some festivities for St. Patty's Day, the Rotary. You can buy a ticket for the Rotary raffle. There's going to be Find the Leprechaun. There's going to be a pub crawl Friday evening, a grub crawl Saturday, with all of the for the most part, all the restaurants are participating. You can find the information on our Williamston Events Facebook page. But we are also talking about floral planters in our downtown area. We did take the metal black planters out of our downtown because they had really met their life cycle. They'd been here for quite a while. Some had rust that was too far gone that we could just put paint on them. So we are in discussions of what does our additional planters look like? Do we want to do concrete that would match the planters that are at the four corners? And what else can we do to enhance our downtown area? Because we do have such a wonderful partnership with our Williamston Garden Club. And then talking about our other events throughout the year, but the one coming up the soonest is going to be St. Patty's Day. And so it should be very fun. And then we'll dive into May with our spring festival. And we'll keep plugging along throughout the rest of the year and we'll make sure that we publicize and promote. We talked about city branding at DDA. We talked about replacement of the banners on our light posts because those also have met the end of their life cycle. We put those up approximately 6 to 8 years ago. And so we're looking at what we can do differently. Could we have several different banners to alternate throughout the course of the year? We talked about possibly doing some veteran banners for those that have served in the armed forces here in Williamston. So lots of good work being done by the DDA board as well. Moving along on our agenda, audience participation, we did not have anybody join our gallery, so I will move around the table for council member comments. I'll start with Tim. All right, Scott?
Yeah, so the current play, interesting enough, is called The Case for the Existence of God. And it's like, I wonder how that's going. Like, you know, you get an atheist, an agnostic, and a Buddhist, and you go there and you see how well that's playing out.
Sounds like
I
a
don't
really
know.
bar joke.
I haven't seen it yet, I'm going Friday, so I don't really know
Excellent.
what else to say, but I found the title interesting.
Absolutely, all right, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Dan?
No comments.
All right, Steve? Terry?
I wonder if God cares one way or the other.
I'm not in any hurry to find out.
We will all know.
Yes.
Within 100 years, we will all know.
All right, John?
Yeah, I gotta tell you, I gotta kind of laugh at myself. I'm sitting at the Sunoco station at the Opens exit. I go, well, that's the Tailgaters. Did all of you know
It's
this?
right there.
Am
Yeah.
I the only one? I am the only.
There's a Tailgaters there's a Tailgaters out on Holt
Mason.
Road exit.
Yes.
And then also there's a Tailgaters on Airport Road.
So we're
On the
getting the
69.
Dunkins and a gas station.
Uh-huh.
We don't know the gasoline type, right? Are we getting the Jimmy John's?
They have not submitted anything for the Jimmy John's, it's
Oh.
just the Dunkin', from what I understand.
Let's trade landscaping for Jimmy John's.
If we could all just
Would be
pray about
smart.
a Jimmy John's.
And good move on the landscaping thing.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
was, that, we want to keep that looking good.
Yes.
Yes, we do.
They were what, they wanted less landscaping, more parking?
So what they were requesting was the requirement is 7 canopy trees, 5 ornamental trees, and 40 bushes. Due to the amount of road frontage that they have, they were requesting 0 canopy trees,
Yeah.
2 ornamental trees, and 10 bushes. And that was due to some safety concerns with lighting at night and the possibility of canopy trees getting into power lines. And what we accommodated them with was we lowered from 7 canopy trees to 5. And I think we removed 1 ornamental tree and everything else remained the same.
All right, great, well, good update. It is warm out, but don't let that fool you. This is Michigan and storms can happen, so I want to thank our DPW crew, our city staff for the 2 storms that came through in the recent weeks. Cleanup was absolutely perfect. And I watched social media and I saw a lot of people saying, streets were cleaned. Just a reminder that after snow is done falling, making sure that you get out there and clean your sidewalks. It is a responsibility of a resident in residential areas to clean their sidewalks within 24 hours after snow has finished. I know sometimes that's tough, but we do want to make sure that to the best of our abilities we do that, because we do have a lot of walkers, whether it's school-age children or adults. But it is starting to stay lighter longer. I think if you follow our city clerk's photography, we're like within 25 days of spring. So I feel like, we're right around the corner from better weather. But good work to everybody. I look forward to Thursday evening when we have our work session again at 6 o'clock at the Williamston Middle School in the multipurpose room. We will definitely have good discussion. Our city manager will keep us on task, on agenda, and we'll see what we can do to keep moving our city forward. With that, I will go ahead and call to adjourn at 6:50.